Call to order the January 11th meeting of the Cary Town Council, which is our first meeting of the year. Happy New Year. And at this time, I'm going to recognize Councilmember Bush for our ceremonial opening. Ms. Bush.
Thank you, Mayor. For those of you who may not know, this weekend is Dream Fest, and Dream Fest is a weekend of events, both the community and Cary sponsored, to really celebrate the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And during this holiday weekend, we have a number of diverse range of activities for you to get involved in, whether it's programs that talk about equity and representation and poverty for that matter, also providing opportunities for people to be of service. And we really welcome your participation at many of the events, and we hope to see you out there. And with that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is to adopt the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to recognitions, reports, and presentations. And we have a special guest in our audience. We have Jaden Paskanik, who is working from Troop 152, working on his citizenship in the community badge, and if he would stand and be recognized at this time. We now go to the manager's update, and I'll call on Mr. Stiegel.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I wanted to make sure everyone saw our announcement earlier today that we've closed the Chinese Lantern Festival for the rest of the season. While Cary fared pretty well with Tuesday's storms, several large lanterns were severely damaged and would not be able to be repaired in the short term. The festival was set to end this weekend, and those with remaining tickets are being contacted on how to get refunds. Even with losing these final days, attendance this year was very strong and about the same as last year.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, we'll have to cut it short.
Yeah.
But I think being safe is the right thing to do. All right, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for speaking at Public Speaks Out on the online agenda and the printed agenda. There were 3 opportunities to participate in Public Speaks Out through written comments, calling in, or attending here in person this evening. And if you're here in person and would like to speak, I would ask that you take a seat in the rows to my right that are highlighted, and they are reserved for you. Public Speaks Out speakers have up to 3 minutes each for your comments, and speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing, and that's to your benefit because public hearing speakers get 5 minutes. The 3-minute time limit will be enforced, not to be rude, but to be fair to all of our speakers. There's a timer on the podium. It'll start off with a green light. When it turns to a yellow light, that means there are 30 seconds remaining. And when it flashes red, that's the point I'm going to interrupt you. Again, not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers. I thank everyone in the audience for understanding that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, or anything else that may distract from the meeting. So now is the time for Public Speaks Out, and I'll first call on the clerk for any written comments and call on any registered speakers.
We have 1 written comment and 1 registered speaker. Written comment is from Steve Goodridge, urges the Cary Council to address safety concerns on Walnut Street, emphasizing its high pedestrian traffic and recent fatality. It calls for design modifications such as road diets to reduce vehicle speeds and enhance pedestrian safety, stressing the council's role in initiating these changes for the community's benefit. Then our registered speaker is Maria Blanco.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I am following the remarks of one of my neighbors regarding Walnut Street. As you know, our community recently suffered a tremendous loss of a young girl who lost her life because of a traffic incident. I do not know the family. I express my deepest condolences to them, but this brings to, hopefully, to the community's attention that Walnut Street is a speedway, and that really has to be changed. I know that the police department will be, hopefully, increasing enforcement, but we do have a design problem. And I encourage our town manager, our transportation department, and our council to really rethink the design of Walnut Street from Maynard to downtown. Thank you.
Thank you.
No additional registered speakers.
If you are here and have not registered, now's your time to speak at Public Speaks Out. Any speakers that would like to speak at Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, I'll close Public Speaks Out and we'll move to the consent agenda, which is item 4. And for the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'll take a moment to review the consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that 1 vote approves all these items. And on the consent agenda, we only have 1 item, and that's minutes. And I'll at this time offer it to council members if they would like to pull that item for discussion. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That takes us to public hearings. Same rules apply for public hearings that apply for Public Speaks Out, with 1 exception that I mentioned earlier. Speakers now have 5 minutes each for their comments. Our first public hearing is the Town of Cary, Town of Holly Springs agreement regarding municipal annexation boundary. And Assistant Development Director Rob Wilson will present this item, and council may take action. Mr. Wilson.
Good evening, council. The request before you tonight is to conduct a public hearing and consider taking action to renew the annexation agreement between the Town of Cary and the Town of Holly Springs. Before we discuss this request, we'll first take a moment to quickly review annexation agreements. So why do we have annexation agreements and how do they work? Annexation agreements are allowed by state statutes and permit municipalities to agree upon future growth boundaries, enter into a mutual agreement, and move forward with annexing up to the agreed-upon boundaries. Without an agreement, each jurisdiction would be limited to only annexing areas that are closer to their existing boundary than the other jurisdiction's boundary. So having an annexation agreement provides greater flexibility and predictability regarding future growth for each jurisdiction, as well as property owners and developers in the affected areas. Annexation agreements also allow municipalities to take a longer-term view and plan for and invest in key infrastructure, such as water and sewer, to serve these future growth areas. The state statutes do establish a 20-year term limitation for these agreements, though, which is why we're discussing this item tonight. Cary has annexation agreements in place with the town of Holly Springs, the town of Apex, the city of Durham, and the city of Raleigh. Similar to the agreement with Holly Springs, with each of these agreements, renewal is required at the end of the 20-year term limit set by the state. Cary's annexation agreement with Apex will be coming up for renewal in 2025. Durham's will be coming up for renewal next in 2029. We recently renewed our agreement with Raleigh in 2020, and thus its expiration is set for 2040. We do not have a neighboring municipality to the west. However, we do have and rely on our joint land use agreement with Chatham County, which requires 5- and 10-year updates. Cary's annexation agreement boundary line with Holly Springs is shown here in red. The boundary line generally runs from Stevenson Road eastward across Kildare Farm Road to Holly Springs Road. After running about a third of a mile up Holly Springs Road, the line cuts east to Pierce Olive Road, where it then runs south to Optimus Farm Road. From this point, the line meanders south to Middle Creek. Staff from various departments in both Cary and Holly Springs evaluated the boundary to determine whether either party wished to propose changes to the agreement. No desired changes were identified, so the agreement maintains the existing boundary with no changes. There is one minor procedural modification, which is consistent with our other annexation agreements, which is the addition of a requirement for either town to notify the other when annexation occurs adjacent to the agreement boundary. On October 17th of 2023, the Holly Springs Town Council conducted a public hearing on the proposed agreement and then voted unanimously to adopt the ordinance. This concludes staff's presentation. Following the public hearing, staff is available for your questions. Council may choose to take action following the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Now's the time for the public hearing for the Holly Springs and Cary annexation boundary. And I'll call on the clerk to read any written comments or call on any registered speakers.
No written comments and no registered speakers.
If you're here in the audience and would like to speak at this public hearing, I would invite you forward at this time. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, open it up to council members for questions, comments, or motion.
I have one, as usual, question for clarification. The white is ETJ, or what is the white areas on the map?
The white would be areas that are county.
Unincorporated,
So-
Wood County.
So they're unincorporated?
Correct.
Okay, so when we're talking about, perhaps considering annexing things and giving the other town notice, it would be these things, primarily the properties in the white that are,
That are
Adjacent to the red
To the
line.
red line.
right.
Correct. The extraterritorial planning jurisdiction is shown in a lighter color. So if you look at the purple for Holly Springs, you can see there's some
The light
lighter
purple.
purple. That would be their ETJ. This is occurring in an area where we do not have ETJ, and that's why the annexation agreement is helpful.
Very
Good question.
interesting.
Other questions, comments? Motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance that reaffirms and reestablishes the annexation agreement between Holly Springs and the town of Cary for the mutual boundary line between the two municipalities.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
We now move to discussion items. Our first discussion item is Crabtree Creek Greenway Bond Park to High House, and Deputy Manager Russ Overton will present this item, and council may take action. Mr. Overton.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be here tonight as you consider this bid award. This is a bit of an old school role for me, as I have stepped into a bit of a leadership role back in the Transportation Department, as Mr. Jensen here has moved into his downtown role. So it allows me to put on my hat as a civil engineer, which some of you, Jennifer may remember, going back 25 years ago, I used to do a lot of these. So let me talk about.
Feel good?
Yes, it's all coming back to me. It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, we'll see.
No pressure. Our well-connected greenway system is part of the fabric of the community, so I'm happy to present this bid award for consideration of the construction of a segment of the Crabtree Creek Greenway system and Bond Park just north of High House Road. This project was approved as part of the fiscal year 2020 capital budget and will complete a 2,500-foot gap of the Crabtree Creek Greenway corridor, which begins at the end of the existing Crabtree Greenway adjacent to Ball Field 7, as shown on the map, or if you've been out there. It passes then through Cary Parkway grade-separated crossing and runs up the Preston soccer fields, ultimately connecting to existing sidewalks on High House Road, and will build a small portion of a street-side trail. A little more about the alignment considerations. On this map, the yellow alignment is the proposed alignment for construction, and the green alignment is a concept alignment from the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan. And I'll just point out that many of our older greenways simply follow our creeks and streams, like the red dashed alignment on the screen. Our newer greenway designs take into consideration the environmentally sensitive stream buffers and floodplains. So where feasible, we'll shift the trail away from the stream buffers, or maybe even these days build boardwalks, to minimize the disruption to ecologically sensitive areas around our streams. This also removes the additional need for stream crossings or more costly reoccurring maintenance issues down the line. In this case, the red alignment was deemed not feasible, and I should point out that all alignments on the map stay within town property. Let's look at a few features about this greenway. Beginning at Bond Park, Ballfield 7, you'll see the end of the trail currently, so this will continue north to the end, or up to a utility easement. Here's a picture of that utility easement. It will extend on the utility easement for roughly 500 feet. This will also help better facilitate maintenance to the utility. Within this stretch, we've also had staff has committed with the neighbors to looking at it for additional landscaping and screening with the help of Leslie Mormon, our urban forester. I'll point out that the utility easement is 20 feet wide and the greenway will take up about 10 feet. And then just for other reference, there is a buffer adjacent to the greenway extending to the neighborhood just to the left or west of this area that's about anywhere from 80 to 250 feet away. It's also forested. After extending through the grade separated crossing under Cary Parkway, the trail will pop out into the eastern edge of the Preston soccer fields and finally connecting to the sidewalk and building a small portion of street side trail at High House Road. The project was originally advertised for construction in October, and on December the 1st, we received 5 bids, and Lanier Construction Company was determined to be the lowest responsible bidder, with a bid amount of $1,501,405. This project originally received $1,320,000 in federal congestion mitigation and air quality funding that was approved as part of that 2020 budget. Those funds were awarded through the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, CAMPO, Locally Administered Projects Program, or LAP. Thank you.
Remember the first instance of using the acronym.
Yes, acronyms, yes. No acronyms, we heard it.
Just helping out a little.
Given a slight escalation in costs, as this did come in within the engineer's estimate, staff has recently requested an additional $250,000 in contingencies that you'll need to recognize tonight. That was funded in part by LAP. So you'll see that Cary's match for this was $580,000. So next steps, following approval of the construction bid, staff will seek NCDOT concurrence. And after DOT concurrence, we'll sign the contract with Lanier. And finally, construction is anticipated to begin in the spring and take about a year to complete. So tonight, staff is recommending that you award the construction contract to Lanier Construction for the amount of $1,501,405, and then recognize the additional LAP grant funding for $250,000.
Thank you, Mr. Overton. Council members have questions, comments?
I have a quick question. This is a notoriously wet area, hence floodway, floodplain, all of that. Is there additional stormwater mitigation that we're going to do as part of that?
It'll be graded to drain. It does cross through the floodplain, and there will be a bridge that I didn't really highlight, but there'll be one bridge that crosses a tributary, and it may, depending on the flood, could see some runoff.
I mean, it was gone yesterday. It was totally underwater.
But I think we've done our best to mitigate potential for that, especially by moving it mostly out of the floodplain.
Are there challenges? I mean, I know we've purchased houses in the past for other places. I'm not saying right here. But are any of the homeowners surrounding this area suffering? Is there something we can do stormwater-wise that would significantly help this area?
Look at Dana.
Since you're already
I'm
going to
not
be
aware of
disturbing
any,
the land?
and if you want to, yeah, happy to do that.
It seems like it might be a great opportunity for us to make something that's not so great better, especially if we're going to be in there with all kinds of equipment. And, you know, another opportunity with climate change, it's not going to get any better. So it seems like it might be
Sure,
a
you can
good
look into it and
investment.
ask.
Okay.
Other questions, comments, motion?
Let's see here, I'm scrolling down.
Russ, do you want to put the recommendation slide
Yeah.
back up?
Yeah, thank you. All right, I make a recommendation that we award the construction contract to Lanier Construction for $1,501,405, and that we recognize additional federal LAP grant funding of $250,000.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Overton. We now move to our last discussion item. Is the ILA. You guys are going to do that acronym, right? Agreement between Cary 911 and Raleigh 911. We have Chief Mike Cooper from our fire department and Chief Terry Salt from our police department going to present this item, and council may take action. Chiefs, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chief Salt and I are honored to be here with you tonight to talk about the CAD-to-CAD ILA. And because we knew how fond you were of acronyms, we wanted to see how many we could put on the first page. I'm just kidding. Trying to squeeze all those words on the first slide was difficult. So I chose the option to list the acronyms and then explain it. So CAD is computer-aided dispatch, and ILA is interlocal agreement. So moving forward, we'll stop using acronyms. Is that okay? All right. So Council, the Imagine Cary Community Plan underscores Cary's commitment to plan and provide essential public services to our growing residential and employment base while working cooperatively and proactively to find regional solutions. We're here tonight to speak with you about a proposal to upgrade the current on-premise CAD-to-CAD interface to a cloud-based interface that will provide substantial benefit to both the police department and the fire department and allow us to continue to provide excellent emergency service. Cary is a regional partner in emergency response, as you know. For an example, Cary's 911 Center currently serves as the primary public safety answering point, or PSAP, that receives and dispatches emergency calls for agencies that you see listed on the slide. Consistent with this regional presence, Cary and Raleigh also cooperate in responding to emergencies. We both maintain computer-aided dispatch systems, or CAD. that share information with one another through an on-premise CAD-to-CAD interface that Cary hosts. We'd like to take just a moment to provide a brief overview of what is CAD and what is a CAD-to-CAD interface, so that'll hopefully help you out. CAD is a system that 911 centers nationwide use to input data and track incidents and dispatch responders. Since 2019, Cary and Raleigh have used an on-premise CAD-to-CAD solution to transfer real-time data of emergency incidents between both centers. This data is used dozens of times a day, and it ensures responses to incidents are optimized and that responders from multiple jurisdictions, multiple agencies, or municipalities have access to the same information. In 2023, the North Carolina 911 Board introduced a process enabling 911 centers to submit project proposals for funding opportunities. Cary 911 submitted a proposal for funding to move Raleigh and Cary's on-premise system to a cloud CAD-to-CAD system. The proposal received approval from the board for Cary to utilize both 911 funds as well as next generation 911 funds. But a requirement of the funding is that Cary and Raleigh must improve an interlocal agreement with one another that outlines how the new system will be installed, maintained, and paid for. We are here tonight to bring that agreement before you for consideration and approval. So before I turn it over to Chief Salt, we want to explain what an ILA is. Interlocal agreements, often abbreviated as ILAs, are special types of agreements that are authorized by state law. This allows local governments to enter into agreements with each other when they want to work together. State law requires such agreements to be approved by the governing boards of participating local governments. As we mentioned earlier, Cary serves as the primary call center for both Cary, Apex, and Mooresville. That arrangement was created by an ILA that this council approved back in 2019. So that's what one could look like. So now I'm going to turn it over to Chief Salt, and he's going to talk about the benefits of a cloud-to-cloud solution.
Mayor and council, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I want to make 2 points up front. One is, pay close attention to my slides, there are no acronyms. The second thing is, with your permission, I'm going to allow my technical assistant to change the slides. In all seriousness, there are some really serious benefits from entering into this ILA. First off, it offers regional interoperability. That means basically any other department that we want to regionalize with, we don't have to have the same computer-aided dispatch system. We can actually use this interface as long as they're doing it in the cloud. And so that makes it much more flexible. Also, it increases our efficiency. And it does that in a couple of ways, and a couple of these slides will be just a little bit redundant, but the efficiency comes in not only the transfer of information and data. In other words, we take a call here, we can transfer it to Raleigh or back and forth, but it also comes in some other areas that I'll explain in just a few minutes. Enhanced performance. It makes things quicker, smoother, more reliable, and basically able to recover. And then greater flexibility. Again, we're getting ready to jump on the venture of the computer-aided dispatch system, replacing our current one. And so if we don't have the same system as Raleigh or we don't have the same system as Apex, we can use the cloud solution in this ILA to take us forward. The other benefit is financial. First off, really costs us nothing to get into it. It's 100%, the initial costs are 100% funded, but we go through a reimbursement process on that. And so 50% of the eligible cost comes from 911 funds that are focused on cloud solutions. The other 50% comes from the 911 board grant for cloud solutions. So there's two different, they sound similar, but there's two different funding sources to include in that 100%. Additionally, there are 50% cost savings going forward, and that comes from the fact that, and it's only available through the cloud solutions, not in-house server solutions, and that's because Raleigh Wake will pick up their share, where 100% of our share for computer-aided dispatch to computer-aided dispatch is ours if it's based here in our town. And so we'll actually realize a 50% savings going forward. So it's from a financial perspective, it's really truly a no-brainer. And then probably one of the others, I know several of the council members are familiar with cybersecurity. It enhances our security. And from that standpoint, we see cloud storage has better encryption methods. It's easier for us to recover from a disaster, and we comply more readily with industry standards, and we have advanced security measures that are beyond our in-house capabilities. And so from that standpoint, we are recommending that you adopt the attached resolution and approve the interlocal agreement.
Thank you, Chief Sultan, Chief Cooper. Open it up to council members for questions or comments.
I have a quick question. Do you expect over time that other PSAPs or other public safety answering points will participate in this? It won't just be us in Raleigh?
We're already in discussion with Durham, Chatham County, RDU, and Apex.
Great.
Yes, ma'am.
When we talk about the improved efficiency, I assume that we don't have any data or metrics to say there would be any advancement on the response time?
It will be more consistent in our response time. The in-house server is less efficient and effective than the cloud system, but some of the efficiencies are with staff time and updates. We don't have to take the system offline to do the updates where we currently do. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is we don't have to have IT personnel tied to that. It can be done in the cloud. They don't have to come in to do that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I do have a question about who is maintaining the security for the system, whether it's got native backup or third-party backup, all those technical details. Is that something that's being handled internally between one of the inner departments, or is that something that's handled by a third party?
It's coordinated through our IT, but actually, if you're in the cloud, it's who your cloud server is, actually manages the security. Our job is to make sure that we ask the right questions and make sure, and we have checks and balances to make sure that those security measures are in place.
And our vendor is Central Squared.
Yeah.
Okay. Say that again?
Central Square.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have a little question. I mean, one of the benefits you mentioned is the cost savings. A lot of organizations are finding that they're having escalating cloud storage expenses. What is your thought about that? And is it significant, minor, as far as your anticipation?
Well, this funding is part of the Next Generation 911, and so it's a cost-benefit analysis. I do think that it's going to be more efficient to be in the cloud as we go forward because there's less staff time. And typically in the annual maintenance part of that, it's staff time that's the most expensive. The second part of that is with Next Generation 911, we can literally pick up a 911 center and move it anywhere else tied to the cloud, and then we can operate fully. And then that means and I'm going to use an acronym even though I said I wouldn't. It wasn't in the presentation. The CAD to CAD will be able to travel with us instead of being tied inside the city's systems.
Correct.
Okay.
Rather than being tied to on-premise hardware, should something
Yeah, there's a
happen.
lot of advantages to not having that. I can
Yes, ma'am.
understand that. Okay.
Other questions? Are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the attached resolution approving interlocal agreement between the City of Raleigh and the Town of Cary regarding procurement funding, maintenance, and ownership of the computer-aided dispatch to computer-aided dispatch system.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, chiefs.
Thank you.
That concludes our business for the evening. This meeting is adjourned.